They shamed me for being pregnant at my wedding. I refused to hide my baby bump. My in-laws stormed out mid-ceremony, and the whole wedding turned into a public family feud. I always thought my wedding day would be a picture-perfect fairy tale. White flowers, soft music, and me walking down the aisle in a stunning dress that would leave everyone in awe. But I didn't imagine I'd be 8 months pregnant, standing in a boutique, clutching my dream dress while my mother and future mother-in-law both gasped like I just committed some unforgivable sin. Before we dive into this intense story, we have a small favor to ask. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. It's always incredible to see how far our stories reach. Thank you so much. Now let's dive in. Let me back up. I'm Jessica Miller, 28, a freelance photographer from Denver who thrives on breaking the mold. My fiancé, now husband, Noah Williams, 31, is a high school science teacher who somehow manages to make dry facts about the periodic table sound exciting. We met 4 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue, and I knew right away he was different. He was kind, calm, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. Fast forward to now. We've built a life together, got engaged a year ago, and then, surprise, I found out I was pregnant 5 months before the wedding. We weren't planning for it, but when I told Noah, he literally picked me up and twirled me around the kitchen like we were in a cheesy rom-com. "This is the start of everything," he whispered, his hands on my belly before there was even a bump. So yeah, we decided the wedding would go on, baby bump and all, but not everyone was thrilled. The trouble started the moment we invited our parents over for dinner to share the big news. My mom, Diane, a perfectionist who prides herself on keeping up appearances, was stunned into silence. Noah's mom, Elaine, a polite but traditional woman who grew up in a small town, offered a stiff smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course, we're happy for you," Diane finally said, though her tone said otherwise. Elaine added quickly, "Just remember, weddings have a certain decorum." At the time, I brushed it off. They'd come around, or so I thought. I stood in front of the mirror in the boutique, running my hands over my dress. It was perfect. Ivory silk, lace detailing, and an empire waist that gracefully curved over my round belly. It wasn't tight or over the top, but yes, it showed that I was pregnant, and I loved that. "This is the one," I smiled, turning to face Diane and Elaine. The silence was deafening. Diane pressed her lips into a thin line. "Jessica, sweetie, it's beautiful, but don't you think it's a little revealing?" Elaine nodded. "The bump is just so out there. It's distracting." I blinked, caught between offense and disbelief. "Distracting? I'm literally pregnant. I'm not going to pretend I'm not." Diane sighed, her polished fingers clutching her purse tighter. "Jess, people are going to talk. This isn't exactly how we pictured your wedding." "I'm starting a family. That's what this wedding is about," I snapped. Elaine leaned in, whispering like this was the worst confession she'd ever made. "In our community, it's considered improper. It might look like you're showing off your mistake." "Mistake?" My voice cracked with anger. Diane quickly jumped in. "She didn't mean it that way. She just meant—" "No, she did," I cut her off. "And if either of you think my baby is a mistake, you don't need to be at this wedding." I left the boutique, my heart pounding and the dress in my arms. I didn't look back. When I got home, Noah was on the couch grading papers. He looked up and immediately saw my blotchy, tear-streaked face. "They hated it, didn't they?" he asked softly. I sat down hard next to him. "They think I'm embarrassing the family by not hiding the bump, like the baby is something shameful." Noah's jaw tightened. He stood up, pacing the room. "You're literally carrying our child, and they want you to cover that up? No, absolutely not." "Even your mom?" I asked, hesitant. "Especially my mom," he fired back. "This is our day. No one gets to shame you for that." And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't going to change the dress. I wasn't going to hide, but I had no idea just how bad things were going to get. Because the wedding, it didn't just go wrong. It exploded. The morning of my wedding felt strangely calm. Too calm, almost like the world was holding its breath before the storm. The sun was shining, my dream dress hung on the back of the door, and inside me, our little one kicked softly as if reminding me, "We've got this, Mom." Noah was already at the venue helping set things up, and I was in the bridal suite, my best friend, Lily, helping me with final touches. She was the one who gave me that raised eyebrow when I told her what happened at the boutique. "They really said the baby's a mistake?" she scoffed, pinning the last section of my hair. I sighed. "Elaine did. My mom just kind of let it happen." "Girl, you're a whole damn goddess. Let them stare at that bump. It's beautiful," she smirked. I smiled, but there was still this pit in my stomach, because I knew my mom and Elaine weren't done. The bridal suite door swung open, and in walked my mom and Elaine, both of them looking like they'd rehearsed a speech on the car ride over. "Jessica," Diane started, her voice sickly sweet, "before you walk down that aisle, we really need to talk." Here it was. Elaine held out what looked like a white satin wrap. "We brought this. It's elegant, covers your, and still matches the dress." I stared at it like it was contagious. "You want me to cover up? Again?" Elaine looked exasperated. "It's not about you, Jessica. It's about the guests. The family. They'll talk. This is about respect." "Respect?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You think I should hide my baby because you're scared of a few whispers? This isn't 1950? Diane stepped in, panic in her eyes. "Jess, please, your grandparents are here. They'll be horrified." "I don't care if they faint in the front row," I snapped. "This is my wedding. I'm not ashamed of this pregnancy, and if that makes people uncomfortable, they can leave." Elaine looked scandalized. "You're ruining the family image." "No," I cut her off. "You're ruining the day by making this about anything other than love." Before either of them could respond, Noah burst into the room, clearly hearing the end of the conversation. "She's not changing a damn thing," he growled. His mom paled. "Noah, no, Mom, you've been pushing this since the start. Jess is carrying our child, and if you can't respect that, maybe you shouldn't be here." The room went dead silent. Elaine blinked, clearly fighting back tears, and Diane, she just looked furious, like I'd personally betrayed her. Neither of them said another word as they stormed out. Despite the chaos before, walking down that aisle with my bump proudly on display felt right. I could see Noah at the altar, his face softening the second he saw me, and I swear I saw him wipe a tear away. But not everyone was happy. Whispers echoed through the crowd. Older relatives nudging each other, a few guests staring openly at my belly like it was an alien invasion. I ignored them, until halfway through the vows. I barely got to the part where I said, "I promise to love you and our growing family," when I heard it. Elaine, a not-so-quiet whisper from the front row. "This is a disgrace." I froze. So did Noah. There was a beat of total silence before Noah stepped forward, dropping his hands from mine. "Mom, if you can't sit there without insulting my wife on our wedding day, leave." Gasps rippled through the guests. Diane stood up too. "Noah, don't be ridiculous. She didn't mean—" "No, Mom," I snapped, turning to face her. "You've been judging me since the minute I got pregnant, and you know what? I'm done pretending it's okay." Noah grabbed my hand again. "If you can't be happy for us, you shouldn't be here." Elaine stood up, tears in her eyes but full of pride. "Fine." She grabbed Diane's arm, and to my utter shock the two mothers stormed out, leaving half the crowd stunned into silence. The heavy wooden doors slammed shut behind them, with an echo that felt like a gavel hitting the judge's bench. For a few seconds, no one moved, no one spoke. All I could hear was my own breathing, shallow and fast, and the rapid thump of my heart in my ears. Then, an older aunt gasped loudly. Someone in the second row actually whispered, "Oh my God," like this was the climax of a soap opera. But then, Lily, my best friend, broke the tension. She stood up, clapping, loud. "Well, this just got interesting," she declared, a huge grin on her face. A ripple of laughter followed, hesitant at first, but then real. Someone in the back whistled. Another guest, Noah's cousin, I think, muttered, "I told you this wedding was going to be wild." Even the officiant cleared his throat and chuckled. "Shall we proceed?" he asked with a bemused smile. Noah squeezed my hand, his dimples flashing as he leaned in and whispered, "I think this is the part where we ignore them and get married." I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing, like the kind of laugh where I had to cover my mouth to stop the snorts. "Let's do it," I finally said. So, we continued. Noah read his vows first, simple, sweet, and laced with humor. "I promise to love you through everything, even family scandals and late-night pregnancy cravings." People laughed. A few sniffled. When it was my turn, I hesitated for a beat, my hand resting on my belly. "I promise to love you, fight for us, and never let anyone make me feel ashamed of what we're building together, not even our parents." Gasps, laughter, applause. The energy had shifted. People weren't uncomfortable anymore. They were invested. By the time we made it to the reception, everyone was buzzing about what had just gone down. Noah's uncle raised his glass during the first toast and said, "To Jessica and Noah, who clearly know how to make an exit and an entrance." The whole room roared with laughter, and for the first time that day, I felt fully, deeply happy. Elaine and Diane were gone, but it was freeing, like I didn't have to perform or pretend anymore. People danced harder, drank more. The energy was wild. Even Noah's grandmother, who I thought would be the most traditional one there, came up to me, patted my bump, and whispered, "You were right not to hide it. It's a beautiful thing." I almost cried on the spot. I thought the drama would end once the wedding was over. I was wrong. The morning after, I woke up in bed next to Noah, my husband now, with the wedding still playing on a loop in my head, the slammed doors, the shocked gasps, and the way Noah stood up for me in front of everyone. It felt empowering. But then I saw my phone. 17 unread messages. Most were from my mom, a couple from Elaine, S, and it wasn't over yet. The first apology, or was it? I met my mom for coffee a few days later. I almost didn't go. I didn't want round 2 of the "you embarrass the family" talk, but Noah convinced me. "Give her a chance," he said, "even if it's awkward." He wasn't wrong. We sat in the corner of the cafe, the air thick with tension. She stirred her coffee aggressively before finally blurting out, "Jessica, I didn't mean for it to go that far." I raised an eyebrow. "You called my baby a mistake, Mom." She winced. "I didn't mean it like that. I was scared people would judge you. I didn't want whispers or looks." I cut her off. "Mom, I don't care about the whispers. What hurt is that you cared more about them than about me." Her face crumpled. For the first time, I saw regret. Real regret. Not just the forced kind for the sake of appearances. "I didn't know how to handle it," she admitted. "I'm sorry, Jessica. I really am. It wasn't perfect, but it was something." I nodded. "I'm not asking for perfect, just respect." But then came Elaine. And more drama. Elaine was not as quick to come around. Noah called her, invited her over for dinner to clear the air. It was tense. She barely made it past small talk before dropping, "I just thought it was inappropriate. I still think family traditions should be respected." Noah set down his fork. Calmly, but with that quiet authority that meant he was about to shut it down. "Mom, this isn't about a dress or traditions. It's about you not respecting Jess, or our family." Elaine's eyes narrowed. "I raised you better than to disrespect your mother." "And I thought I raised you to respect my wife," Noah shot back. Silence. I didn't even breathe. Then Elaine blinked hard, her hands tightening on her glass of water. "I just didn't want people thinking poorly of you two." Noah softened, but only slightly. "We don't live our lives for people." "And neither should you." She didn't fully apologize that night, but she left quieter, like his words were finally sinking in. A week later, I got a letter in the mail from her. It was short, but it was real. "I realize I put appearances over your happiness. I'm sorry. I hope you'll let me be part of my grandchild's life." The weeks that followed weren't easy. Diane was still hyper-focused on what her friends said about the wedding. Elaine tiptoed around me at family events. But something shifted. They both saw that I wasn't going to bend. When the baby was born, a beautiful, healthy baby girl we named Lila, they both showed up at the hospital. Diane brought flowers. Elaine brought a knitted blanket. Neither of them mentioned the wedding, but I saw it in their eyes. They got it now. Yeah, it was messy. It was emotional. It was tight, like walking on a fraying rope, wondering if it would snap. But we pulled through. Not because everyone changed overnight, not because it magically became easy, but because I stopped waiting for their approval. I stopped shrinking myself to make others comfortable. I stopped living for the whispers and sideways glances, and I decided, fully, finally, that I was going to live for me, for my husband, for my daughter, for our messy, imperfect, absolutely beautiful little family. And you know what? That's more than enough. Please like if you believe no one should feel ashamed of showing who they truly are, even on their wedding day. Comment, your take. Should I have handled it differently, or was this the only way? Let's talk about it. I'm reading every comment. Sigh,